Hey guys! So we are going to be doing a deposition reading of what seems like it's going to be some spicy attorney sparring. We have Elon Musk's attorney, or sort of, because he doesn't even have pro hoc vice status yet, but he's here with Elon Musk for this deposition. There's currently a motion to file sanctions against him because he doesn't have his pro hoc vice status, and because he's very disruptive during this deposition, according to Ben Brody, the plaintiff's attorney, Mark Bankston. We're going to judge for ourselves. We're going to see what kind of answers we get out of this deposition. And if you are unaware of the context, a quick roundup summary. Ben Brody is a regular layperson minding his own business when one day people start asking him, hey, why are people saying you're at this protest and you're unmasked as a neo-Nazi? And there were several people on Twitter that were making an association with somebody that was unmasked at a protest and this person, Ben Brody, who is not, in fact, the person at this protest. Elon Musk, according to the plaintiff's argument, was, repeating some of this information in a way that they find to be defamatory. With defamation, there's certain elements that have to be proven. And the point of a deposition is to give a party the chance to gather the information they may need to prove the elements needed for their case. So in this, we're going to really just be looking at a direct examination. This is going to be Mark Bankston asking direct examination questions of Elon Musk. There is not going to be a cross-examination here. And Mr. Bankston, Mark Bankston, really wants to establish, was the thing that you said false? Well, that doesn't really need to be established. Were you aware that it was false? Did you recklessly say these things? Were you negligent? Could you have looked and tried to correct the record? Was there malice? Did someone maybe ask you to retract that and show you that it was incorrect? And you were like, nope, not gonna do that. Sucks for you. Was there malice? So what we're gonna see here is Mark Bankston. He's looking to establish, for information to establish, 4 of these elements to help his client, Ben Brody, prove his case of defamation against Elon Musk. So we're going to be, since this is a transcript here, when you see Q&A, this answer shorthand will usually mean it's the witness answering. When you see just this A, that's going to be Elon answering. However, which is atypical, we're going to see a lot of names. We're going to see the attorneys' names over and over because they argue with each other a lot during this. Well, let's get into it. And I've got Nathan in here. I'm not sure if you're into this Elon stuff, so if you're not and you're here joining to tune in for the first time, that's awesome. Let me know what you think, because I think Barbara has some... She was already looking at this deposition. Barbara, our resident jokester, already has some background on this case, and she's going to come with the comedy, but I need you, Nathan, if you're not familiar, if you haven't followed this case, I need you to come with the blind eyes, the blind insight. So we're going to start reading this here. I'm going to actually make the screen bigger and make myself smaller. Zoom this in. And then, so we start off, obviously they swear the witness in. There is one part here, usually this isn't that interesting, but what's interesting here, at the beginning of a deposition, it starts off and you ask, all right, who's present? And this is held over Zoom, so it's virtual. Who's on the screens? Who's representing what parties? So Mr. Bankston, who is the actual attorney and he can practice over in Texas, he's like, I'm Mark Bankston. I'm from Farrar and Ball, and I'm representing the plaintiff, Ben Brody. Then Mr. Spiro jumps in and says, well, and I guess then it's to me, Alex Spiro, on behalf of Mr. Musk. Now pin this, because if you didn't watch our motions for sanctions reading yesterday, this is going to become important. Then they swear in the witness, and then they start direct examination. So Mr. Bankston is always going to be leading these questions to Elon Musk. Hi, Mr. Musk. Can you hear me okay? I can. Okay. Do you think you did anything wrong to Ben Brody? Mr. Spiro. Okay, this isn't a question you're allowed to ask by the court, so we're not going to do this, Mark, or this deposition is going to be over before it starts. Guys, we've been on the stream for 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Most of it has been me doing an intro. We started this reading 3 lines ago, and we're already at we could end this now. It's starting with fireworks. So Mr. Bankston says, I'm asking about his state of mind. So Mr. Spiro, no. Mr. Bankston, yes, I am. Mr. Spiro, no, you're not going to ask. You're not going to ask questions like that. It doesn't have, I'm going to ask. Mr. Spiro, no, you're not, or you can go see the judge. We're on page 1, you guys. We are on page 1. Mr. Bankston, let me read something for the record, all right? As you know, as the court told you in Unsworth v. Musk, so another case, the defendant's subsequent conduct can be relevant to his state of mind at the time of the alleged defamation. And as I say in Warner Brothers, that's another case, actual malice may be inferred from the defendant's acts, words, before, at, or after the defamation occurs. And if he's sitting here today, and he has opinions about whether he did something wrong, that is relevant to the state of mind at the time he made the statements. Of course I can ask him, do you think you committed actual malice? Do you think you were reckless? Of course I can ask these questions. And, yeah, we'll go to the court over that. So he's saying all this for the record. Mr. Spiro continues, you didn't ask if he committed actual malice, obviously. Then Mr. Bankston jumps in. I didn't. I asked him something that was very relevant to that. I'd like to get him talking about things that he did wrong. Mr. Spiro says, but that's the point. That's not what you're allowed to do in this deposition. You can't just get him talking. Mr. Bankston says, I disagree. Mr. Spiro, you just showed your cards that this case is dead on arrival. And you can't just get him talking as you just put it. So you've got 4 bullets, Mr. Bankston. That's the 4 elements. When he's saying 4 bullets there, what Spiro's saying is, there's the scope of this deposition is these 4 bullet points. These 4 elements you're allowed to ask questions about. What was Bankston just saying? I'm literally trying to ask questions about one of them, malice. And I have the right to ask those questions. And Spiro's like, nope, that's not part of the bullet. So Mr. Bankston says, yes, I can. Alex. We're arguing on a first name basis on page 2. Mr. Spiro, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mr. Bankston says, Alex. Mr. Spiro, you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mr. Bankston says, all right, hold on a second. And then Mr. Spiro continues, so if you want to ask him those bullets, you can go through those bullets and ask him. The reporter has to come in here, guys, and say, 1 at a time, please. Because they're talking all over each other. I wonder, one day I want to, find a court reporter that's been doing this for, 50 years and be like, how often in a deposition does this happen this quickly, this soon on in the examination? So already Mr. Bankston says, yeah, let's go ahead and take a breath, Alex. First of all, I know you're not a Texas attorney. I know you don't know Rule 199.5, right? I know you're not even pro hoc in this case. So that's why I said pin that earlier, them introducing themselves, where Alex Spiro was just like, all right, well, it's to me then. I guess I'm here representing Elon Musk. And his Texas attorneys, Elon Musk's actual Texas attorneys in this case, aren't present. They should have known about this hearing, but they're not there, which means they probably knew Alex Spiro was going to show up. But Alex Spiro doesn't even have pro hoc vice admission to practice in the state for the purpose of this case, even though he's not licensed. You don't have to be licensed if you get permission following a state's rules to come in to help with a certain specific case. In Texas, you need the approval of the state bar and or the approval of the court that you're trying to participate in a proceeding in. And right here, Mr. Bankston's like, I know you're not a Texas attorney and you don't even have pro hoc vice status. So fireworks, guys. Fireworks. Mr. Spiro goes on to say, this isn't productive. You want to go ask another question? Go ask another question. You're lecturing. Mr. Bankston, are you instructing him not to answer? Mr. Spiro, you can try to ask the question again, and I'll listen to it again. Mr. Bankston, are you going to instruct him not to answer? Mr. Spiro, I don't know. I'll hear the question and tell you. Mr. Bankston, okay. Mr. Musk, do you think you did anything wrong to Ben Brody? Mr. Spiro, did anything wrong to Ben Brody? Okay, you can ask that question. So now we have first, this is the first thing Elon's saying. Elon says, I don't know Ben Brody. Now, Mr. Bankston, again, is asking, you're aware Ben Brody is somebody who sued you, right? Guys, I want to pause there because usually with this Q&A, you don't have these parentheses here. But I think this court reporter felt it necessary. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this parentheses here, because this court reporter found it necessary, with all this unusual back and forth between the two attorneys in a deposition, the court reporter decided I should make this clear that we're actually going correctly to Mr. Bankston speaking. So I'm going to put these parentheses here. So he says, you're aware Ben Brody is someone who sued you, right? Elon says, I think you're the one suing. So Bankston, actually, Mr. Musk, I'm an attorney. Did you know that? I'm an attorney representing Mr. Brody. Elon, yes, but many times I found that the actual plaintiff is the attorney. Now, what's he saying there? What's he saying there? And I think he might dive into this a little further, but he's going to take a dig at attorneys going for big money by representing clients in big cases or against big people. Let's see if he dives into that. So, Bankston says, okay, but that's just an assumption you're making, right? Like, you don't know anything about Ben Brody? Elon, I don't. Bankston, okay. You understand Ben Brody has filed a lawsuit against you? Elon says, in my opinion, you're the one filing the lawsuit. Bankston says, okay, you understand. Let's try to make this an easier way. You understand that there's a piece of paper on which there's a lawsuit written, and at the top of the lawsuit it says Ben Brody plaintiff versus Elon Musk defendant. Do you understand that? Elon, I understand that, but I view many cases, and probably this one too, that the real plaintiff is the lawyer seeking money like you. Now remember, guys, Mark Bankston just had like a monumental win in the defamation case against Alex Jones. I mean, the news that day was about the verdict amount more than it was about the verdict itself. It was like, what, like 80 billion, 83 billion? I know Barbara will know in like 2 seconds. Barbara's going to know the exact details. So this is the same attorney here that's standing here questioning Elon. And the first statements we're getting out of Elon is like, well, I'm pretty sure you're suing me because sometimes, lawyers like you seek money. I'm Elon Musk. It's safe to assume I have money. So this all fireworks from all the parties here. Let me see where you guys are at before we keep going here. I see Sheed's here. Hey, Sheed. And then also I saw Erica come in. So, hey, you guys, let me know if you guys pay attention to Elon legal drama, if this is like new for you guys. And then Barbara says, dogs and lawyers take on their owner's client's personality. And then, hey, Nathan's waving at everybody here. And Barbara says he's really got to dial back his dosage if he confuses an attorney for a college kid. Well, I mean, we're kind of here because he confused a college kid for someone totally different at a protest somewhere else. So I guess we've come full circle. We're back to questioning from Bankston here, right after Elon took this dig saying, people looking for money, lawyers like you. So Bankston says, okay, I'd like to know though, are you aware? He keeps making it so elementary. Are you aware that there's a piece of paper that has a lawsuit on it that says Ben Brody versus Elon Musk? That's actually what I'm wanting to know. Yes. Okay. Technically. So Elon jumps in to frame his answer of yes to say, technically. So what's he saying there? Yeah, I know Ben Brody's name is the plaintiff at the top, so technically it's him, but it's really you, the lawyer seeking money. Bankston says, do you feel like you have an understanding of what the lawsuit alleges you did wrong? And then Barbara has the update here, maybe 45 million from Alex Jones. So, but it was something big, like it was some big number. I don't know what it was. I could Google it real quick. $965 million in compensatory. Where's the punitive? So it totaled to 1.5 billion, and other people were doing the math. That's why I'm confused, because when I was watching the streams, people were trying to do the math based on the statutory limits plus the number of co-defendants and adding them all up. It was just like a huge monumental number. So now you have Elon Musk, another, well, was Alex Jones a billionaire? I don't know that for sure. So before I say another billionaire, Elon Musk is another billionaire. Elon Musk is a billionaire. And he's saying the same attorney that just won this huge verdict against Alex Jones in that defamation case, you know, the attorneys usually, their agreement, they get some percentage of the settlement, the final judgment amount. He's saying, all right, well, here you are to rinse and repeat and do the same thing with Ben Brody as your client against me, because Ben Brody is seeking in excess of $1 million for the damages that he incurred through this defamation from Elon Musk. So, do you feel you have an understanding of what the lawsuit alleges you did wrong? I have a limited understanding of that, of what the lawsuit is about. Okay, let's start. What I want to think it's really about is about you getting a lot of money. Bankston says, okay, all right. Let's start with the incident that this lawsuit's based on. You understand that this case involves a brawl in Oregon between some right-wing extremists. Elon says, I don't know much about... You're referring to a handful of posts on the X platform? This is the only person in the world that isn't accidentally calling it Twitter before they correct it to say X. Bankston says, no, actually, Mr. Musk, I'm referring to the fact that on June 24th, 2023, as described in Plaintiff Brody's lawsuit, there was a brawl in Oregon between right-wing extremists. Were you aware that that was the subject matter of that lawsuit? So now we're back to Mr. Spiro answering. We had about 2 pages of Elon giving some answers, mostly talking about Bankston. But now we're back to Spiro. I don't know if that's the subject matter of the lawsuit. I think the subject matter of the... Bankston cuts in. The subject matter of the lawsuit, and Mr. Spiro, again, your objections to questions in an oral deposition under Rule 195 are limited to objection, leading an objection form, or objection non-responsive. In other words, don't give speaking objections. Those objections are waived if not stated as phrased. All other objections need not be made or recorded during the oral deposition to be raised to the court. You must not give any suggestive or argumentative or any explanations during the deposition. Mr. Spiro, well, then don't say things that are misleading and I won't. Bankston says, no, that's why you should object to the form of the question. Mr. Spiro says, no, it's not. Mr. Bankston, that's misleading, Mr. Spiro. You know, Mr. Spiro. Now we're back to Spiro speaking. Listen, if you want to go back and forth with me and waste your time, you can. Go on to your next question. Mr. Bankston, oh, we're going to get more time if you keep doing this. No, you're not. No, you're not. Go to the judge. You're violating Rule 199, and you're not even pro hoc admitted. So Spiro says, okay, you're just giving speeches that nobody's listening to but you. You're just doing them for yourself. Bankston says, oh, they're for the record, Mr. Spiro. They're for the court to listen to. Spiro says, okay, so keep... And Bankston comes back. And I would appreciate it. I'm going to give you an instruction. I would appreciate it if you would abide by Rule 199.5 of the Texas rules. Mr. Spiro cuts in and says, I heard you the first 3 times. Bankston says, Mr. Spiro, please do not interrupt me. I heard you the first 3 times. Mr. Spiro, please do not interrupt me. I'm asking you on the record to obey Rule 199.5. If you continue to violate Rule 199.5, I will move for sanctions against you. So I please ask you to obey the rules in the remainder of this deposition. Well, spoiler alert, guys. We know that there's a motion for sanctions. So how do we think the rest of this deposition is going to go? Exhibit 1's entered into the record. Mr. Bankston's asking the questions. Mr. Musk, I want to show you a tweet that you posted on the day of the brawl, which is June 24th, 2023. Can we bring up tab A? We're going to mark this as Exhibit 1. Mr. Musk, this is a meme that you shared about psyops, correct? Yes, it's a joke. A psyop is a psychological operation, right? Yes, I believe that this is what it refers to, yes. Okay, and this meme jokes that there are almost daily psyops. Mr. Spiro's speaking now. I'm going to interrupt again, and I don't really care that rule that you keep reading because it has nothing to do with... Mr. Banks says, I know you don't. Mr. Spiro says, good. The court, the witness, so this is Elon here saying, to the judge. Mr. Spiro says, how is this relevant to the court order? Mr. Bankston says, because I'm getting to... This isn't a regular deposition. Mr. Spiro. Mr. Spiro says, now I'm talking, so don't interrupt me. How is this? This is a deposition governed by a limited court order. Bankston says, correct. Spiro, because he gave you a limited court order on this case, so I have every right to ask and to stop. I'm not going to just let you do 2 hours about Mr. Musk's upbringing. Why is this the example? None of this question has nothing to do with his upbringing. There's no random background information. It got right to Ben Brody and Twitter questions, X questions. This is so left field, this specific example. So Spiro goes on. How is this tweet? That is nothing. That is not a tweet in this case. How is this relevant under the court's order? Mr. Bankston. This is very much, Mr. Spiro, I don't know if you were listening to me. This is what he posted on the day of the brawl. In this case, it's about whether this brawl was being accused to be a psyop. This is absolutely relevant to his state of mind on when he calls this brawl a psyop. I'm really, Mr. Spiro, I really have to ask you to please get yourself up to speed on the facts of this case. I'm definitely going to ask him. Mr. Spiro starts interrupting. Again, this isn't a real. You keep lecturing me like, get up to speed on the facts of this case. This isn't like a real case. This is just some stupid... Mr. Bankston says, Mr. Spiro. Spiro says, yeah, so... And then Mr. Bankston, lawyers do not... It is not in accordance with the lawyer's creed to just start making random statements about the alleged frivolity of a case to another lawyer in a deposition. You know that's not proper. You know that. Mr. Spiro, do you give these lectures at all your depositions? Bankston says, I do, and you can watch them. Mr. Spiro, in any event, this is not a tweet that's alleged. If you're alleging that this tweet is directly relating to the brawl, ask. Bankston says, that's what I'm asking him, Mr. Spiro. Mr. Spiro says, oh, okay. Is there some code in Texas that you don't yell and raise your voice in depositions? The witness. So this is Elon here. Why are you yelling? Calm yourself. Spiro says, yeah, why are you yelling? Elon says, calm yourself, calm yourself. Bankston says, I'm very, very disturbed by what you're doing. Elon says, you're yelling at everyone. Mr. Bankston, I'm very disturbed that you're instructing the witness. So Elon says, I mean, show some decorum. Mr. Spiro, I'm not instructing the witness. I'm not instructing the question. Ask your question. Mr. Bankston, okay, now that I've got you up to speed, I can ask my question? And hold on, let's just look at this. Because guys, we're seeing this on the record. And maybe Mr. Bankston's voice was loud. If it was loud, was it the only one that's loud in the room? Is it disproportionate to what else is going on? But we're only seeing a transcript. So what if this is just like a stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me, and mom comes into the room to see the two siblings, and the one saying stop hitting me is 20 feet away from the kid that's supposed to be hitting them. Like, we don't know because it's a text transcript. We don't have the Zoom to know who's really... But they just jump in, and they're both like, yeah, you're yelling. So maybe I should change my Bankston voice to higher volume. So anyway, we get back to the questioning here. Okay, good. Now that I've got you up to speed, can I ask my question? Mr. Spiro. Yeah, I asked you for the relevance of how this relates to the court order. You gave me an answer. I'm not preventing him from answering, so ask your question. Mr. Bankston. All right, let's keep moving. Mr. Musk, this meme. The question that I had, was this meme jokes that there are almost daily psyops, correct? Elon says, this is a joke about psyops. Bankston. Okay, but psyops for you are not always a laughing matter, right? Elon. I mean, I don't think they're actually daily psyops. This is... Bankston. No, I get that. I understand. Elon. A tinfoil hat? Bankston. Right. I get this is a joke. I understand that. Elon. It's a joke, obviously. Bankston. What I'm asking, though... Elon. If somebody puts... May I finish? Bankston. Sure. Elon, do you feel you need to yell again? Bankston, I might. Elon, yeah, I've rarely met a lawyer with less decorum than you, if you could be called a lawyer. So this is a joke, obviously. Bankston, right. Elon, this is just a kitten with a tinfoil hat. Bankston, uh-huh. Elon, and in fact, I'm making fun of that fact that there are people claim psyops when often there is not a psyop. Bankston, okay, but what I want to ask you about is for you, this is a joke, but there are other times in which for you, psyops are not a joke. Elon, I think the vast majority of time people think there's a psyop, and there is not a psyop. Bankston, okay, that's okay. But let's talk about, and actually let's put a pin in this because yesterday when we were reading the motion for sanctions, and I believe it was also mentioned in the initial petition, an example Bankston gave was, hey, it's important for us to know if Elon talks like this all the time about these conspiracies. But Bankston actually gave an example of Elon saying, hey, that was it Dallas, the Allen Mall, something in Allen, Texas. There was the mall shooter. And the internet, the conspiracy was saying, oh, it's a psyop. Uh, he wasn't really some Nazi white supremacist. They just showed some guy with tattoos to make us think. But it's really like a plant. It was the Fed. But in that situation, Bankston cited that Elon came out and said, no, I don't think that one's like falsely putting on these tattoos and just pretending that's not. So I think Bankston did give us an example, maybe inadvertently, of Elon actually saying this. No, there are times where I think people just think the wrong thing and it's not really actually a psyop. So I think so whatever. Just a little thing I remember. Maybe like broken clocks right twice a day type thing. But Banks in here says, okay, that's okay, but let's talk about that tinfoil hat for a second. I want to try to get to the symbolism of that, all right? Tell me what is this exhibit? Like, tinfoil hat cat meme. Hold on. Is this something we can... Not a quick Google search. But all this questioning is about... I don't know, is it one of these? When you play along with your human conspiracy theories? I want to know what this meme is that we have like multiple pages of this deposition being devoted to. Because context is important. So, we have more questions about this tinfoil hat. We're going to dive in even further about tinfoil hat cat. Should I get a tinfoil hat, guys? So, we're getting to the symbolism of it. And this is Bankston, tell me if I'm summarizing this joke correctly. That the idea of something being a psyop might sound a little crazy, but sometimes you see evidence or facts that make you think there is a psyop. And wow, that makes you want to put on a tinfoil hat like the conspiracy people do. That's kind of the joke there. Am I interpreting that correctly? Elon says, no. That could be this meme, though. That could be this random meme that I pulled up. I don't know if this is the same one. This could be. So Elon just says, nope, that's not that theory. Okay, so let me pull it back a little bit. Would you agree with me that the idea that any given event is a psyop or is something that is improbable but not impossible? Elon says yes. Okay, do you remember just a couple of weeks before this meme when the Allen, Texas neo-Nazi shooting happened about you using the term psyop for that event? Mr. Spiro says, I'm thinking this is outside the court order, so I'm not going to allow you to answer this question. You can keep going. So did Elon actually call that one a psyop? I'm gonna get a tinfoil hat, guys. To really get into character with Elon Musk. What I should have done is had two cams and just like switched so I could like, between two ferns, that Zach Galifianakis podcast little skit that he used to do. I could just switch the camera angles and just like really quick put the hat on. Or have like an overlay on the camera with the hat and I just gotta stand still in the frame. That would be the next time I do like a 2-voice reading back and forth. We gotta figure out some way to do that. So Spiro says, not going to allow you to answer that question. Bankston clarifies here. So you're going to instruct him not to answer. Spiro says, you heard me the first time. Bankston said, I didn't. I'm not sure what that meant, actually. Mr. Spiro, he's not answering that question. You're on, I think with the judge would maybe let you ask some of the questions you're asking, maybe. There's no chance in my view that the judge would have let you go back 2 weeks to some other incident. I don't think that's what the judge intended. Mr. Bankston, Mr. Spiro, I just need your instruction. I don't need your comments. Mr. Spiro, yeah, I gave my instruction, and then you started talking, so I'm responding. Mr. Bankston, okay, all I said is, Mr. Spiro, and I'll make whatever record I want to make, okay? Mr. Bankston, please do. And, I mean, technically, we did already get a paragraph worth of for the records from Mr. Bankston, so tit for tat. Mr. Musk, are you going to obey? You're going to abide by your counsel's instruction not to answer that question? Okay, so right here, I think Bankston knew if he stuck with the word obey, he'd get a snarky response from Elon about using the word obey. So he corrected it real quick. You're going to abide by your counsel's instruction not to answer that question. Elon says, sounds like it's outside the judge's instructions. Mr. Bankston, so yes? Elon, yes. Bankston, okay, a false flag. That's a type of psyop? Elon says, I'm no expert on psyops, but yes, that would be a type of psyop, I believe. Bankston, okay, now a false flag, for people who may not understand that term. That's a form of deception, right? Elon, yes. Bankston, in other words, a false flag requires dishonesty. You're falsely portraying something. Elon, I believe it's in the name. If it's not a true flag, it would be a false flag. Oh my God. Bankston says, correct. Okay, thank you, Mr. Musk. Let's talk a little bit about your tweets about the brawl. So, okay, as far as what your understanding of the suit is, do you understand that this lawsuit takes issue with the tweet that you posted on June 27th? I don't quote exactly, but that sounds correct. Bankston, can I ask you, have you read the lawsuit? Elon says, I've read a summary of the lawsuit. Bankston, a summary of the lawsuit? Elon, yes. Bankston, okay, all right. Let's see what we can do here. You do understand that on the previous 2 dates, June 25th and June 26th, you interacted with 2 tweets about one of the unmasked brawlers in that brawl. Elon, that is what I have read in the lawsuit, yeah. Bankston, okay, we're going to go back to those tweets, but first I want to verify. You were ordered to answer some discovery, and it appears from your answers that, before your tweet on June 27th, you did not do any searches on Twitter or any web searches, like on a search engine for information about the identity of this unmasked brawler. Is that correct? Elon, that's correct. Bankston, okay. Would it be fair for me to say that other than the tweets that you interacted with, you did not secure other information about this unmasked brawler? Elon, I don't recall securing other information. Bankston, in other words, you didn't get any information by text or email or any other sort of communication with anybody else about the brawler. Elon, I don't recall, not that I recall, no. Bankston, okay. And did you ask somebody to go get you? Let me start that again. Did you ask anyone to go get you any information on this unmasked brawler? No. And I think that question's kind of important because he's saying, Elon, you're busy, so you can't just use the busy excuse because you could have asked someone else to go get you information. Right? I think that's preemptive there. Because what would you say? Like this man, Elon, if he's doing like 10 things in a day and it has 10 different conspiracy theories to talk about, he clearly might not have time to go and do a Google search. But before he gives the excuse of, I'm too busy for that, well, did you ask someone else to go research for you? So that's an interesting little question that I don't think Bankston would have asked a layperson. So Elon says no, he didn't ask someone else to go research this unmasked brawler. Bankston says, okay, so it'd be fair to say that the information that you acquired about the brawler was from the tweets that you interacted with. Correct. And then they put Exhibit 2 on the record. All right, I want to talk about those tweets right now. So we're going to pull up tab B and we'll mark this as Exhibit 2. All right, Mr. Musk, on your screen, are you able to see that, or do I need to zoom in a little bit? It's small, but I'm able to read it. Okay, so you'll see. I'm going to kind of go through it, and we'll go through it tweet by tweet so we can read it together. So read along, guys. You'll see the first is a post from a suspended account, so we can't see it, right? Correct. And then the second is your tweet, and you asked who were the unmasked individuals, right? Yes. And then an account called Accept Doge. So we're getting some Dogecoin, guys. Tells you, and I think there's a typo, but here's one of them. Elon says yes. Does that look right to you? Elon again says yes. Bankston. Okay. And then there's a tweet from Dr. Frenzer, and it says, oh my fucking god, they're so busted. A member of Patriot Front is actually a political science student at a liberal school on a career path towards the feds. Do you see that? Elon says yes. Bankston. Okay. And then you'll see that there are 2 images from the brawl in Portland that day, along with 2 screenshots from Ben Brody's social media information. Do you see their pictures of Ben Brody and the information about him? Elon says you need to zoom in, I think. So Bankston asks the tech guy, can you zoom in there? And then Elon says, yes, I see it. Bankston, okay. So you now see that we have pictures from the brawl as well as pictures showing and describing Ben Brody, correct? Yes. Okay. And then scroll down. Your response to that it just says, very odd, correct? Yes. Okay, this was the first time you became aware of this allegation about Ben Brody? Elon says, I think so. Okay, on the quote tweet from Dr. Frenzer. Can you scroll up just a little bit? Okay. On this quote tweet, do you see how it says, we can see that it's part of a thread because it says, replying to Dr. Frenzer. Do you see where that is? Yes. So I think it's kind of interesting that they're using a live tab to look at all of this rather than something that's extracted from the thread. Because they've said that, hey, this is suspended, you can't see it anymore, so it's not like they have a screenshot of whatever it used to say. They're interacting and going through the quotes and just a live tab. That's kind of interesting. Yes. Okay. And then do you see below the text it says, show more, right? Elon says yes. Do you know if you clicked on the Dr. Frenzer tweet and read any of the other tweets in that thread? I don't recall doing so. And do you know if you clicked on Dr. Frenzer's profile to bring up their timeline and bio? Not that I recall. Not for nothing, guys, but do you think going through the replies in some threads, it could, but do you think it undoubtedly would bring you to correct information? Because sometimes the replies are filled with just spam or garbage or a bunch of link in bio type profiles. So it's interesting here that I guess the line of questioning, what we're trying to uncover is, you didn't go through the replies looking for an answer. But on the flip side of that, guys, on X, especially in certain realms of the internet, going through the replies could be a deeper dive into the already incorrect rabbit hole. So, interesting gray area there, I think, personally. But I get that he's just looking for information to make a case. So, Elon doesn't recall looking through replies for more commentary. Bankston says, okay, and if you didn't do that, there was no way for you to assess this person's credibility, right? Elon says, I wasn't trying to assess their credibility. That's probably not good for Elon to say. I'm not asking if you were trying to. I actually don't think you were at all. But I'm asking you, the only method that you had in front of you right here to assess credibility, to learn anything about this person, was to click on their profile, right? There was no information about them in this tweet. Elon, I don't think clicking on someone's profile is an effective way of assessing their credibility. Good point, because I think my X bio says dibs on Yoshi. So, I mean, I don't think that makes me uncredible, but Bankston says, well, couldn't you click on their profile and take a quick look at their timeline and see if the things they've been saying were the things that might give red flags about reliability? Isn't that something you could do? Elon says, possibly. And that's sort of not a very reliable way. Sure, but I'm asking that as something you could do. If, for instance, let's say you clicked on Dr. Frenzer's account and you saw that they were tweeting a bunch of really wacky, obviously false things, that might give someone pause about whether this person was reliable, correct? Elon says, yeah, you'd say that perhaps that would affect things. Bankston says, do you know? Elon says, it is, I guess this is an interruption, they're probably talking over each other. So Elon's continuing his last thought. Yeah, you'd say that perhaps that would affect things. It's possible for people who are, nobody's right all the time, nobody's wrong all the time. Bankston says, sure. Elon says, so it's possible for some people to, like once in a while, a conspiracy theorist is going to be right. Bankston says, yeah, somebody who's really, really unreliable most of the time could be right some of the time, right? This is turning into like a philosophical podcast rather than a deposition. And then Elon says, yes, and people who are reliable could be wrong some of the time. Bankston says, and so in other words, somebody who's unreliable, if you did some homework and checking, you might actually discover, hey, this unreliable person is correct, right? Spiro says, objection to form. Cool, we have a real short objection there. That's the first one. Elon says, I think everyone is wrong to some degree and everyone is right, usually to some degree. Bankston says, do you know? Spiro says, Mark, you've got to let him answer the question. You're cutting him off at the end of every answer. So Bankston says, Mr. Musk, do you have anything else you want to add? Elon says, I was saying that even if somebody's wrong most of the time, they will still be right some of the time. And if somebody's right most of the time, they will still be wrong some of the time. Bankston says, agreed. Do you know if you saw any other tweets from Dr. Fresner that day or a few days before that? Elon says, I don't know Dr. Frenzer or that account. Do you? I'm saying so you don't know if you saw tweets from them prior, either that day or days prior. I don't think I did. Okay, I'm asking, do you know? Did you go and check? Do you know, or is that still an open question? Elon says, I don't recall looking at Dr. Frenzer's account. Bankston, there's a possibility you've seen tweets from Dr. Fresner before? That's possible, yeah. So now they're entering Exhibit 3. So I guess they're calling it tabs, but they're marking it as exhibits. So maybe they're not looking at these live. Maybe they have like them downloaded as a PDF and they're just on tabs on the computer that they're flipping between. But who knows? It's kind of weird to me that they'd be looking at, a live X feed as an exhibit, because that could change. Someone could go and delete their tweet as soon as they hear it's mentioned in a deposition. So maybe it's just the terminology they're using I'm not sure exactly if they're using a preserved exhibit or looking at a live tab. But so we see here, this is the following day, June 26th. And as you see, your tweet at the bottom was at 5:34 a.m., okay? So now we're on the second day, June 26th. You'll see at the top, there's a tweet from Matt Wallace 888, okay? And that tweet reads, remember when they called us conspiracy theorists for saying the feds were planting fake Nazis at rallies? And then he has a crying, laughing emoji. Do you see that? Elon says, uh-huh. Okay. And then in the tweet, we see the same pictures that we saw in the Dr. Frenzer tweet, correct? Elon says they look like the same pictures. Yeah, it's the same set of images that Dr. Frenzer had attached to their tweet, right? They look like the same images. And then you replied, always remove their masks, correct? Elon, yes, I think we want to shine a light on whoever's doing these things. And then Bankston says, okay, all right. So I want to move past these two tweets that you saw on June 25th and June 26th. And now I want to move to June 27th, which this is the date that this lawsuit focuses on, the tweet that it takes issue with, all right? So now we're getting into like the meat and bones of Ben Brody's complaint. So on June 27th, you understood there was an existing allegation that you had seen on Twitter about this Ben Brody person, the college student who wanted to join the government. And then Elon says, I'm sorry, are you going to show this? And then Ben says, no, Bankston says, no, I'm going to ask you a question actually. So listen and I'll ask again, okay? On June 27th, you understood that there was an existing allegation you had seen on Twitter about this Ben Brody person, this college student who wanted to join the government, correct? Elon, I guess I would have been aware at that time that there were some posts that prior day. I'm on the platform a lot, so I see sometimes several thousand posts per day. Do you remember that, week that X throttled how many posts you could view per day? Wasn't it 500? Which is only a minute of scrolling. I forgot about that. So, Bankston says sure. But all I'm saying is now that we're on June 27th, we know that in the 2 prior days, you had become aware that there was this existing allegation about Ben Brody. Elon says, yes. It would not have been top of mind, but certainly I think I probably would have vaguely recalled it, yeah. Then they have Exhibit 4 on the record. Bankston says, all right, so this is going to be tab D. It's going to be Exhibit 4. And this is the exchange that the lawsuit takes issue with, okay? Elon says, uh-huh. And we see here at the top that this is Zero Hedge. Do you see that? Okay, you know Zero Hedge is a blog with anonymous contributors, right? Elon says, yes. Now, I want to be clear here. I do not think that anonymity necessarily means unreliability. But here, what Bankston wants to do is say, if someone's anonymous, then you don't know the reliability, right? Because his argument isn't to say, like, anonymous is always bad. It's to say that Elon wouldn't know. There's no signal, no sign, no research done into this person's reliability. So, even though I want to say, hey, don't think that everybody anonymous is necessarily some bad actor who needs to hide behind a fake account to say what they want to say, I don't really think that's the argument being made here or the purpose. But Elon says yes. Bankston says, okay, at this time, were you aware of Zero Hedge before you responded to this tweet? So Elon says, I've seen posts from Zero Hedge before. Then Bankston says, okay, do you feel like they're a media organization that you're familiar with? Or is this something that you just see every now and then see tweets from? And could you describe for me your level of familiarity with them? If I was Spiro, I would object. That's like a lot of questions. Elon says, I see a lot of their posts. I don't know the people behind it. Okay, got you. Now in this tweet, Zero Hedge says, Patriot Front white supremacist unmasked at a suspected Fed. Do you see that? Elon says yes. And I think I had pulled up some of these tweets. I thought I had that one, but maybe I didn't. So Bankston says, okay, now based on what you'd seen at this time, you do not contend that this unmasked person was a federal law enforcement member, but instead that it was a college student. Is that right? Yes, I did pull this up yesterday. So the point of this is Zero Hedge says one thing, and then Elon replies, and in his reply, he offers a alternative. In other words, that implies, if I was Elon, that means what you're saying I don't think is correct. Here's actually what it really is instead. And when you do something like that, you're implying a knowledge of truth and that you believe what you're saying is true. That's why this tab that Bankston's going through right here, this is important for him to get information about because this is the heart of Ben Brody's claims of defamation against Elon Musk. So Elon says here, my post simply says, quote, looks like one is a college student who wants to join the government and another is maybe an Antifa member, but it's a probable false flag situation. I also put @community notes, which is the fact-checking system on the X Twitter platform. Oh, we're getting both X Twitter now, guys. He's not just saying X. So the reason I put @community notes there is so that community notes can assess the accuracy of the statement. So Bankston objects to this answer. He says objection non-responsive. That's interesting. Bankston says, do you remember what my question was, Mr. Musk? Elon says, please restate. So Bankston, this was a long... Now remember, what did I say I'm surprised? Well, this was up here further, but Spiro, I was surprised he didn't object to an earlier paragraph. It was like one long question. And now they're having conversational back and forth, and Bankston doesn't seem to like this answer. And he's just asking, based on what you'd seen at this time, you did not contend that this unmasked person was a federal law enforcement member, but instead that it was a college student, right? So Elon answers by reading the full tweet in a quote and saying he puts community notes to fact check. What Bankston's objecting to, he doesn't want this part. He doesn't want Elon to be able to say, hey, I tried to make some effort to see if anyone had a correction. That's what Bankston doesn't want here. And it's good lawyering, but now it's on the record that Elon says, hey, I did actually try. So Bankston's like, do you remember what my question was? Please restate. So Bankston says, I'll do it again. All right. What I'm trying to understand is, based on what you had seen at this point, before you posted this tweet, like when you see the Zero Hedge tweet, based on what you had already seen, you did not contend that this unmasked person was a member of federal law enforcement and instead contended that they were a college student. Is that correct? Spiro objects to the forum. Elon says, I think my post speaks for itself. Bankston says, no, actually that's kind of why I have to ask you, is because I really would like an answer. And then Elon says, I think my post is being very, very literal. So Elon has already read, and I've been pretty like Bankston, a little bit more reasonable from reading this, right? Because we can't hear the volume, and apparently he may have been yelling. But here, I think this part goes to Elon and Spiro here. Because Elon's answer to this original question when it was first asked was him reading the tweet. And he's having to repeat here, no, wait, my post, it's like literally my post. I read you the quote. And Bankston still wants to get something else out here. He's trying to force something. So Bankston says, okay, what I'm trying to figure out is it seems to me that Zero Hedge tweet is essentially floating the idea that this unmasked person is a member of federal law enforcement. And I just want to get the idea of that's not what you were contending. Spiro says, objection to form, I can't understand you. Elon says, I don't understand what you're... And then Bankston says, let's try it this way. Were you contending he was a member of law enforcement? Spiro says, objection to form. Elon says, no, because I say he looks like someone who wants to join the government. Bankston cuts him off and says, thank you. Elon continues. Based on the prior things, the prior posts, and another maybe, you know, a probable false flag situation. And then internet disruption. Wait, what? Okay, I'm just laughing at the timing. He's like, you know, probable false flag situation, internet cuts out. Like, come on. Come on. And the reason I put community notes is so that so he's repeating the answer. This is the bit that Bankston objected to. This is why Bankston, he doesn't say this is why he objected, but it's clearly why he objected. And I put community notes so that community notes is the fact-checking system on the platform, and I'm calling on them to fact-check the situation. So Bankston didn't want this mentioned on the record. Now Elon goes and says it again. So Bankston, sure. And I think he's going to turn this part to his advantage. So this might this flips the other way because now this little line here, I'm calling on them to fact check the situation. What's the implication on the other side of that, guys? I'm calling on them to do it because what? I didn't. So Bankston, ball goes back to his court. Sure, we're going to talk about that too. In fact, let's talk about that. You tagged community notes, which, okay, not everybody, I think, understands what community notes is. So let me see if I can summarize it fairly. Now, why is Bankston summarizing this when it's him, Spiro, and Elon and the court reporter in the room? Why is he summarizing this? Why are we reading this deposition? How are we able to read this deposition? Think about that and ask who this, not everybody might understand what community notes is. So we're gonna, in this deposition, this little room between us, we're gonna make this announcement. So all these people that may not know, why is he putting this here? By tagging community notes through a system of voting had the ability to add a note correcting the Zero Hedge tweet. Is that right? Elon says, that's not how community notes works. Bankston says, I thought there was a voting system that notes are voted on, and if they get enough votes, people from differing political beliefs and backgrounds, that it can be displayed on a tweet. Is that not how it works? Elon, that is, the latter part of your explanation is correct. Okay, Elon, a community note to be surfaced. I think we're missing a word here. I don't think the court reporter transcribed it because Elon's going, a community note to be surfaced. Before something to a community note to be surfaced, people who have historically disagreed must agree in order for a note to be displayed. Okay, so let's make it really simple so people can understand what community notes is. Community notes is a system where notes are proposed by Twitter users. And if those notes get enough votes by members of the community notes team, they can be displayed on tweets to correct them. Elon says yes. Bankston says okay. Elon says it requires people who historically have disagreed to agree. It's not simply a popularity contest. And then Bankston says, and so if a consensus among those folks developed that said, you know what, Mr. Musk is right, Zero Hedge is wrong, this isn't a law enforcement person, community notes, if a consensus developed, had the ability to put a note on Zero Hedge's tweet. Now, Bankston's getting his facts messed up here because Elon said he tagged community notes. That's in his own tweet and reply. And Bankston, even though someone could go and read that whole thread and decide, hey, come post this. Elon also had something stated in his post. People could have corrected either the original post or they could have corrected the post that Elon was making. So it's weird that he limits his question here to just Zero Hedge's tweet, and Spiro objects to the form of the question. That might be because it's a long paragraph. And Elon says, or mine. So Bankston says, or yours or anyone's, right? Elon, correct. So Bankston cleans it up. Cool. And then Bankston says, okay, when you said looks like one is a college student who wants to join the government, you were referring to the person in the screenshots we saw earlier in the tweets from Dr. Frenzer and Matt Wallace 888, correct? I assume so. I think there were two people I referred to previously, and that's what I'm referring to here. And I'm speculating here and saying it looks like one is a college student and maybe another is an Antifa member. And it's probable but not certain false flag situation. And I'm requesting community notes to dig into this and assess the veracity of the situation. When you posted your tweet, you weren't certain that this college student was actually one of the brawlers? Elon says, that's why. I'm not certain. That's why I say it looks like instead of, you know. Interesting. Because that language, and that was in the motion to dismiss, right? The tweet that Bankston is saying is the crux of this case. One of the sets of. Involves him saying, it looks like. And Elon's like, well, clearly I'm implying I'm not certain if I'm saying looks like instead of just is. So Bankston cuts him off and says, and in fact, so when you said looks like, your message was not to tell everybody, hey, I'm sure he's one of the brawlers, but just that you had seen some information suggesting that he was one of the brawlers. Is that fair? So Elon says, yeah, it looks like means that he may be a college student. Bankston says, and that would be, excuse me, keep going. That's just a literal sort of statement of my impression, which is, Bankston says, right, that it looks like, you know, if I said something looks like a donut and it doesn't mean it is a donut, it could be a bagel. Get into bagel and donut metaphors. Let me take a break. Let me say thank you to Lamin. Oh, now I'm gonna mess it up. Lamin. House and Habit has started to dig into the Majors case. Oh, okay. You must be Grant. Okay, now I'm putting two and two together. That's awesome. Okay, this is a good time to look into the Majors case because it's about to go into the civil realm. Obviously, the defamation realm. And thank you for sending the super stickers, by the way. But I'm like jumping into a tangent because you've given me the opportunity. But we're going to see defamation there, right? We got a civil suit from Grace Jabari already filed. And some of it is based on the results of a criminal case. We know she just gave a victim impact statement this week. And, you know, to me, seemed like teeing up for what she wants to portray with this civil suit, just my opinion. But we've heard from Jonathan Major's team that not only does he plan an appeal on the criminal side, which could impact some of the stuff Grace Jabari may be relying on for the civil side of things, but he's filing a counterclaim, of course, a reply, but he's also filing a counterclaim. So we're going to have two sides here. And what's interesting with that is when we started this video and I said, guys, it's really just going to be direct examination. Well, if we are doing a counterclaim in a defamation case, right? We say we have Jonathan Majors, Grace Jabari. Grace Jabari needs to make her case, whatever she's claiming. Then she also needs to build a defense to whatever he's going to claim against her, and vice versa. Well, if we have depositions that we get to look at in that case, there's going to be a cross-examination in those depositions. They're probably going to be very long, to be honest. And you'll see a section where, you know, for when Jabari's being questioned, it might be direct by Major's counsel and then flip it and reverse it. Here, it's just Bankston looking for information. I'm so glad you hopped in here because now I have an excuse to do some tangents. It's very exciting that House and Habit is going to start talking about it. And based on her style of journalism, I think the civil side of it is going to be really, really great coming from her. I think a big portion of her audience, not all of it because she's had a following, before and will continue to have a following outside of the Depp vs. Heard case. But I think there's going to be a big interest with House and Habit's audience on the civil side of the case, especially if they don't already know much about what happened behind the scenes outside of the major news reports from Rolling Stone, Variety, all these same publications that I think a lot of the Depp vs. Heard community already has an eyebrow raised about. So definitely excited to hear that news. And then I sent her you Danielle's Twitter and videos. And if you didn't see, Danny was just back in the courtroom. So I don't know when she's going to do a video. Dre was supposed to do one today and he didn't end up doing it. So either maybe I misheard him say what he was going to be doing Wednesday. Maybe he's traveling and he plans to do a stream when he gets back. But just really interesting stuff. So thank you so much for, sending super chats to also bring a nice detour my way. I appreciate it so much. And then along the way, if you see, you might also be interested in some of this Elon stuff because it ties in, right? This guy Elon's everywhere. He's in drama everywhere. He's just entangled in it all the time. But there's some interesting stuff here. We get to see how his legal counsel, I would argue Alex Spiro, is kind of almost in a friend capacity to Elon because he's represented him in so many cases, or for so many issues, not even things that became a case. And then we get a look at the way Elon responds to things, how he maneuvers certain situations by looking at stuff like this. And we can kind of, maybe at the end of this here, we can relate it to, he didn't show up for a deposition. He didn't sit for a deposition and for Depp v. Heard. There's always a parallel. There's always a parallel, guys. So, and that just looks like, let me make the screen full so people can see because it's the bottom of the page is there. I don't know. I left off about donuts and bagels, right? We're here about the donuts and bagels. Okay. So Elon's making the point. If I said something looks like a donut, it doesn't mean that it is a donut. It could be a bagel. Bankston says, let me try to give you an example. If you said looks like a donut, that would mean that you had seen information in some way or gathered data that would support the idea that maybe that's a donut. Is that fair? Objection to form. Now, do you think that that's actually, I don't know if I really think that that's a fair example. I think that's pretty constraining. Because, I don't know. Have you ever, said you meet a person and you think that they look like a celebrity? But are you not able to say that unless someone else has said that they look like that celebrity before? I think this is kind of a weird example that this rabbit hole Bankston's trying to go down. So Spiro objects to the form. And Elon says, I think this is a very simple post and just, if you said that person looks like my brother, it doesn't mean that they are your brother. Mr. Bankston, right? But you're saying looks like one is a college student. What I would take to mean that from what we've seen before these tweets, you had seen information that suggested that this college student was the brawler, but you weren't sure of that. Now, what's Elon going to say here? So Spiro's objecting to the form. Elon, I'm just literally saying that this looks like. I mean, I can see a picture of my brother and say that that looks like my brother, but it might not be my brother. So he uses the same example. Bankston, right. But you had been given information in that previous days, we saw tweets from Dr. Frenzer and from Matt Wallace saying it was this person. You weren't saying that, right? You were just saying you had seen information, not that you were sure. Am I fair about that? I'm literally just saying that it looks like one is a college student and maybe another is an Antifa member. And I'm asking community notes to sort of fact check this. Bankston says, let me try it this way. The reason that you're saying that it looks like one is a college student is because of the post that we had just talked about. Because you'd seen those posts. That's why you're saying this tweet, right? Elon says, that's probably why I'm saying this. And then he says, okay, when posting your tweet, that readers would not know that information you saw that brought you to reach that conclusion, right? Spiro says, objection to form. Elon says, well, not necessarily. Because what tends to happen is there will be a sequence of replies where, even in the absence of community notes, if something's inaccurate on the system or it's a debatable issue, there will be a series of replies that argue about the substance of a post. Now, this is worth pausing because earlier I said, sometimes comments get unreliable. Let's remember that we're talking about Elon Musk here. So anytime he replies to something on Twitter, it's not just something that's going off into the void, right? Where someone's not going to see it. People from all perspectives that just want to get some engagement. Probably have things turned on to be notified when famous people tweet, so they can be one of the first to reply. Then, if you're also looking at this issue, it's highly likely Elon, like, when I was trying to look for some of these exhibits, because I pulled up some of the tweets that were referenced, I saw them in the exhibits, some of these redhead libertarian. Elon's tweets were all floated to the top because they had such high engagement. So what Elon's saying is, yes, this is the way Twitter works. And I think we also need to add the extra layer, and Elon doesn't really do it for himself. But for him specifically, there's probably going to be a rush of people looking to correct the record or just double down and agree with him wholeheartedly. His replies are going to have a mix of that type of correcting or confirming, whether they're right or wrong. So this is actually really interesting because neither of them so far have said, oh, and by the way, Elon, people also like rush to your replies to engage with it specifically, right? Which is unique, right? Me and you, lay people, we might have one viral tweet, but we don't really get people rushing to our comments to provide new information. Sometimes we get someone looking to bicker and maybe offer a correction, but not by the hundreds or thousands consistently. And no one's really contextualized that here. So that's interesting. But Elon's explaining that, that's not necessary, because what tends to happen is there will be a sequence of replies where, even in the absence of these community notes who I tagged, if something's inaccurate on the system or it's a debatable issue, there's going to be a series of replies arguing about the substance of that post. And I think that's true of like any viral post, right? Not just, it could be about pop culture. It doesn't have to be about, conspiracy theories. So Bankston says, okay, but let's assume I'm the first person to read this tweet. Let's assume. That's a problem. Because if you're making an exception here, but your client's argument is that his reputation's been harmed irreparably, on scale, huge scale, because of the huge reach. But you're going to refute something here by saying, but what about if one person, the very first person to read this tweet, he's correcting his example. I just read it. He realized the trap he was about to lay for himself. Do you catch that here? So he says, okay, but let's assume I'm the first person to read this tweet. Let's assume, pause. You see here how it says it was posted 30 minutes from when the screenshot was taken, and there were already 384 replies. Do you see that? So he's scrapping his first to read. He's switching to, let's say I'm going to reply after there's 384 replies already. Let's assume I'm reply number 1. Let's assume I saw your post 1 second after it was posted. You understood when posting that tweet that if I'm that number 1 reply, I would not know what information you sought to reach your conclusion. Do you agree with that? Objection, form. And then Elon says, or you may. You may know. Bankston says, or may not, right? Elon says, if you're the very first one, no. Spiro says objection to form, a little too late there because Elon already answered. Bankston says, right. And so what I guess I'm saying here is there's nothing in the text of your tweet that would tell me what information you relied on to say that it looks like one is a college student. Do you agree with that? And this goes to a possible element of defamation here. Elon says, in my text, Bankston says, yes. Elon says, it does not have that context. Bankston says, okay, so if I'm the first reader of this tweet, I wouldn't know if you saw something from Dr. Frenzer or Matt Wallace or somebody else. I wouldn't know, would I? Mr. Spiro, objection to form, it's not a proper question. We've actually had a lot of answers here without Spiro interrupting. Or when he has, it's just been a straight objection. Elon says, I guess I declined to answer on advice of counsel. Bankston says, are you instructing him not to answer? Spiro says, no. I mean, if he understands the question, he can answer it. It's not a proper question. Internet interruption. Bankston, look, there's no need for the commentary about if questions are proper or not. That's not necessary. You know it's not necessary. You know the only reason to do it would be to influence the witness. So if you have an instruction to not answer, go ahead and give it. If you have an objection, go ahead and give it. But as far as commentary to the witness, it's not necessary. Mr. Spiro, no, sir, it's not. I just told the witness he can answer. There's nothing about me commenting that all these hypothetical, what if I saw this, what if I saw that questions are not proper questions. I'm surprised you don't know that they're not proper questions. So, Mr. Bankston, everything you're saying, Spiro, can I finish? I'm making my record. So the reason it's, guys, I did this. I was like, oh, he hasn't interrupted in a while. Can I finish? I'm making my record. So the reason I'm making that comment is to sort of signal to you that if you ask 9 out of 10 improper questions, eventually you're going to get an objection from me, and maybe just ask proper questions. There's nothing about me saying that changes how he's going to answer. That's not how witness coaching works. I'm surprised you don't know that. So in any event, all I said was that's not a proper question. It's not a proper question. Any judge reviewing this will tell you it's not a proper question. And if he can answer, he can answer. So Bankston says, all right. Again, I'm going to ask you to obey Rule 1995 because nothing about what you're doing is proper and you know that. So I'm going to ask the question again. Spiro says, we disagree. Bankston. And if he can understand it, then he'll answer, okay? You knew that a reader of your tweet, when posting your tweet, your state of mind, when posting this tweet, you knew that a reader of this tweet would not know from your tweet whether you saw information from Dr. Frenzer or Matt Wallace or anybody else. They wouldn't know, right? And then Elon says, they may not know immediately, but they would know it soon after. And they would also know that there would be many future comments. And there would probably be a community note to figure out the veracity of what I'm saying or the probable accuracy of what I'm saying. Elon is consistently mentioning community notes as tagged here. And now he's saying that would also signal people of a lack of certainty about what's being said in the tweet where someone's saying, hey, at community notes. He's not dropping that. He's bringing it up in every answer he can. So, and there would probably be a community note to figure out the veracity of what I'm saying or the probable accuracy of what I'm saying. Anyone who uses the system would know that there's going to be a vigorous debate about something like this. And they would know that they could look at a community note in the future to understand whether this is accurate or not accurate. And I think I really did this in good faith because I would not ask for a fact check, which is what I do by adding community notes. That's asking for a fact check on my own post. On my own post. Well, you're asking for it on Zero Hedge's post, aren't you? No, I'm asking it on my post and his post. Okay. Gray area, right? Because you can just reply to a post and just put at community notes. And if you're not saying anything, that you're obviously asking community notes, hey, look at this, get this. But if you say a bunch of stuff and then you tag community notes and there's no direction to community notes and you're saying looks like something, is it explicitly clear that your tag of community notes is for either post? Must it be only for one of the posts? Could it be for both posts? So, and then Elon goes on to say, and I think he's trying to play it to his advantage that he tagged community notes, but didn't give a directive to community notes. It's just a tag sitting on his reply where he has other text there in reply to a Zero Hedge tweet. I think he may be stretching that a little bit, but I also think there's nothing there literally that could make us say, no, he was tagging community notes and saying, correct my post for me, please, or correct that post for me, please. I think he's stretching it to his advantage, but so Elon says, people who've used the system know if you at community notes, this is requesting fact check community notes. That's what it means, and people know that. And then Banks says, all right, so let's read that again. Let's say again that I'm the first person who reads this. You're saying that if I'm a sophisticated user, I would know to come back at that some later time and see how the debate has developed. Is that right? And then Elon says, no, I think that any user who's on the system for any period of time. And then Bankston says, okay, well, I don't do that. I mean, I'm a casual user of Twitter, right? He's still calling it Twitter. Look at him. He's one of us. That's how it works, though, Elon says. And then Bankston says, and so you would agree with me that if I was the first person who saw this tweet, and then I saw it and I digested it, and then I never cared to come back and look again, I wouldn't see any of that information, right? Spiro says objection to form. Elon says, I think that is basically no one on the system, and I think you're being disingenuous about what you're saying. I don't think that's how you use the system. Now, what I will say here is, if you continue to stay on a platform, if you've interacted with something, you will continue to get replies to you in that thread. Twitter X will also still try to show you related content about what it thinks is similar. It might even show you if someone else that you have some type of affinity with has some interaction on that same post you may have been on before. So even if you don't intentionally like bookmark something to go back, and you don't get tagged in a reply that would keep giving you notifications directly to look back at that post, there's other ways that the algorithm on X could put you back in front of that post again when you open up your feed or refresh the next time. So I always think that this is interesting stuff to see argued about. This is another Deb versus Heard thing, right? Unfortunately, their expert Ron Schnell didn't really understand the use cases for hashtags. He was trying to say the volume of a hashtag, the uses of a hashtag. If a hashtag's used 100 times, if a hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp is used 100 times, that's 100 people that support Johnny Depp. But what if I'm just trying to promote my stupid t-shirt brand and I'm just trying to prey on trending topics? Or I want to offer a counter opinion and have it be visible to people with opposing views. I'm going to add the hashtag to my post so it gets seen when they're looking for things with that hashtag. And that expert that they hired couldn't comprehend that. And to me, I got the impression once he heard like rebuttal to him, he grasped it and he understood. But he was hired to look at something and he didn't really understand the context of his assignment. Right? So here, Bankston's like, I'm just a casual user. And at this point, to a little bit to his detriment, it shows a little bit. So, and I wanted to say, so thanks for the update. So Dre said that he was tired and had to work tonight. Okay, so that's why we don't have a Dre update today. But they were down at the courthouse. He has posted on his like community, like if you go to the YouTube channel, you go to Dre's channel and then look for the little community tab at the top, you can see his posts from when he was hanging out with Jonathan Majors and Priya Chaudhry. Danny was there and some of the other friends that they either met or knew already. Like really good pictures and a little bit of hints about some things that I think he's going to talk about more when he does his live stream. So thank you for the update, Sheed. And then, hey Ghost, good to see ya. And then, hey Daisy B. He joined during the interesting part, the lawyers arguing about proper question. Oh no, that's been the whole time, Daisy. And then Barbara says, see, Your Honor, I can say whatever I want so long as I tag community notes so they can fact check me if need be, First Amendment and all that. We should actually, I want to go look and see how many times Elon has tagged community notes in his posts. Like, is this something that he does pretty frequently? And that maybe that's maybe that wouldn't be that indicative of, intent or laziness. Like, just correct me, bro. It could also be like promoting the features of the platform. Because for a stretch there, he was posting like gaming streams to promote, was it StreamYard started allowing live syndication with the streams. You could stream longer videos to YouTube and Twitch and X at the same time. So all of a sudden he started like streaming video games himself to promote his own platform's features. So at the same time, someone could argue back and be like, well, he's tagging community nodes just to promote his platform features. So that's when you get to this big level, you're speaking about the owner of this platform, and then you're talking about things he's doing on the platform. It's got to be hard for Bankston to try to get at the heart of what he's getting to, especially if you're just a casual Twitter user. Because there's just so many extra layers that are there that wouldn't be there for someone who's not having like millions of followers on the platform, doesn't know intimately how the platform works, isn't trying to promote the features of the program arbitrarily and not maybe for a specific use at any given moment, right? That's all extra layers here. So Spiro's objecting to forum, and then Elon says, I think that's basically no one on the system. I think you're being disingenuous about what you're saying. I don't think that's how you use the system. So Bankston says, okay, you understand that Ben wanted, and Elon says, I'm very clear here, and people understand that when you add community notes, you're literally asking for please check the accuracy of this statement, and would include the post I'm replying to. And then he says, did they? Elon says, I don't know. And then I've never had community notes on my posts. Are you guys aware? So let's say I never intentionally go open my post again, but it gets a community note. Do you know if I, as the original poster, if I don't go see it, do I get a notification? Hey, we've added a community note to your post, just so you know. Twitter seems to give a lot of, I keep saying Twitter, it gives a lot of notifications for things, right, that its system does. So I want to assume yes, but I don't actually know. So would he have gotten like a ping? And then also, what do his notifications look like? Because honestly, I can picture someone like him replying and then never looking back at what he said again. And now the line of questioning is, well, do you know if they actually answered? It might actually be genuine that he doesn't know that they responded. So Bankston moves on and says, you understand that Ben wanted you to delete your tweet and make a retraction. And Elon says, I don't recall that. Bankston says, you don't recall that? That's interesting. Okay, well, I was going to ask you why you refused that, but if you're not aware that a request was made to apologize and delete this and make a retraction, Spiro objects and asks an answered form. Now, this could be genuine, or it may not be, either way. But Bankston has to look at the possibilities here. Is it possible that Spiro didn't inform Elon Musk of this request? Is it possible that he did and Elon's just like, oh, I don't remember that? Or he did and Elon knows he did and Elon's pretending he doesn't know that he was informed? There's a few options here. But what's the added layer here? Bankston has already poked at shoddy, showing up when you want, not really authorized here to be on this case. Alex Spiro, you're not licensed in Texas and you don't have pro hoc vice status. You're not, the court hasn't admitted you to appear on behalf of Elon Musk for this proceeding. And yet you're here anyway. So unironically, Bankston is laying out this question. Oh, you're not aware? And I think he's, oh, that's interesting. Well, okay. I was going to ask why you refused to do that, but if you're not aware that a request is made to apologize and delete this and make a retraction? And Spiro jumps in and objects, asked and answered. Elon again says, I don't recall that, no. So, we're going to get to another question. He's going to segue it. But what might this suggest? This is kind of a pit. Because you've given us groundwork to suggest you're making motions that Alex Spiro is not doing great. His decorum is lacking. You filed a whole motion for sanctions and a motion to oppose his pro hoc vice admission. And now you've got the witness saying something that the attorney should have relayed to him wasn't relayed to him. And normally, a normal person would say, hey, your lawyer probably did inform you. And you either weren't paying attention or you're lying right now. You're not credible saying this answer. But you've given us reason to actually, there's greater plausibility here based on your own characterization of Alex Spiro. Now, he's not even supposed to be here doing this. He's just running around. Bankston kind of laid the foundation that there's plausibility here that Alex Spiro didn't relay the message. Maybe, just a possibility. And Spiro objects pretty quickly here. So, there's also the possibility that Spiro is doing that on purpose and saying, I'm going to find things and I'm not going to tell you things that I'm supposed to tell you so you can play dumb. And Elon could know about it. I don't know. These are all just theories. So Bankston segues, he takes this question in a new direction. He says, all right, well, if you knew right now, knowing right now, Ben is really upset that this tweet's still up and that he wanted there to be a retraction. How do you feel about that? And Spiro says, objection to form. How do you feel about it? How is that? How you feel about it? How is that relevant? Mr. Bankston. Mr. Spiro. And Spiro says, now to the 4 deposition topics. We're on, I guess, topic 4. We've addressed 1 through 3. How is that relevant to 4? Bankston says, because in Gonzalez v. Hurst, a refusal to print a retraction is evidence of an action after the publication, but it can lend support to a claim that reckless disregard or knowledge existed at the time of publication. Similarly, in New Times v. Isaacs, Texas Supreme Court, their refusal to retract an exposed error tends to support a finding of actual malice, and conversely, a readiness to retract tends to negate actual malice. So again, I'll pose my question. Mr. Spiro, yeah, I'll look at those cases, but he's not answering right now. I don't see the relevance. I don't think those names, I'm pretty confident those names are not directly on point, so I'll review the case so we can respond further. Mr. Bankston says, all right, next time I'd appreciate it if you showed up in a deposition with a Texas lawyer who had an understanding of Texas law of actual malice. Spiro says, okay, you keep filing these silly, frivolous shakedown cases. I'll keep trying to think of Texas lawyers to bring to your depositions. Mr. Bankston, Mr. Musk, I will tell you I'm trying to be as civil as I can in this deposition with you and your attorney. I'd appreciate it. These random, insulting, professionally demeaning really have no place here. And we talked about this a little bit. It's you guys to decide because we're only reading this in text, right? We're not actually seeing the body language. And in like the NBA, when someone flops, they plop themselves on the ground and act all dramatic so they can get some foul shots, get some extra points. This could be a flop. Even if we could see it, the body language could be a flop, right? But we know Mr. Bankston has already filed very quickly a motion for sanctions and a motion to oppose the pro hoc vice admission of Alex Spiro. So, on one hand, Mr. Bankston may be thin-skinned and saying, these random insulting and demeaning and you're berating me, that's really, I don't like that, it's really hurtful. He could be thin-skinned, but on the other hand, he could just be doing a good job for his client and doing some strategic lawyering and saying, I'm going to ham this up for the record. I'm going to say these words on the record. So when I file my motion, I can point back. It's right here on the record. Oh, you're demeaning me. You're insulting me. It could be the stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Just so it's there. It's heard. Could be either. And if you think Mr. Spiro's actually helping by any mechanism, whatever you think that mechanism is, if you think he's helpful to Elon Musk, it's obviously strategic for you and your case, your client, to not get that pro hoc vice admission approved. So, either way, could just be good lawyering, could be a little bit of whining, could be a little bit of both. Could be flop whining, pretend whining, for the sake of being able to push this motion for sanctions forward. So, Spiro responds to all that by saying, you just did the same thing, and I responded in kind, so keep moving with the deposition. You're running out of time. Bankston says, and we're only 42 pages in, guys, so this is not the end of it. You think that's what happened here. Spiro says, I know this is your big day in the sun. You're running out of time. Bankston, talk about big days in the sun, Mr. Musk. I want to talk about how you browse and see information on Twitter. You have an account called Elon Musk where you browse and interact on Twitter, correct? Yes. Can we bring up tab E? All right, is this another account that you use to see tweets on Twitter? I don't use that account. I think I briefly had it as a test account. Guys, if you're watching, this is going to be popcorn time. Well, that's what I'm asking. In the summer of 2023, right, which is when I'm seeing this post on here, was this an account that you would use when you would see tweets on Twitter? Where you would see tweets on Twitter? No, I would not use this account. It was just being used for testing. Bankston says, well, I mean, look, there's a tweet I see. There's more tweets on this account, right? Were you posting and viewing tweets with this account? Spiro says objection, asked and answered. I don't see the relevance to the fourth question. Move on. Bankston says, I need to know what. Spiro interrupts and says, he's not answering. He's just answered you twice. He's not answering any more questions about this account. Bankston, well, I'm going to put it on the record why I'm asking this question in case I need to put in a motion. Which is, we know he did. Which is, I need to know all the accounts that you've used to view tweets on Twitter during this time period, so I can see what else you've interacted with on Twitter. Mr. Spiro, well, he just told you he didn't use the account. He already answered that question. Mr. Bankston, right. And I was asking a follow-up about that, because the tweet has posts on it does not mean that you used it. I think maybe he meant accounts here, because the tweet has posts on it does not mean. This sentence is scrambling my brain. Because the tweets has post on it does not mean that you used it and use it to view tweets at this time, or am I wrong about that? Elon says, I briefly use, Elon apparently understands the question better than me. Elon says, I briefly use this account as a test account. There are only 2 accounts that I use on a regular basis. One is my main account and the other is Baby Smoke 9000. Guys, I wore this shirt for a reason. Baby Smoke 9000. Bankston just says, okay. And then you said on a regular basis, are there any other alt accounts that you're using to view tweets in the summer of 2023? Elon says no. Yeah, this is the question. Like, Bankston really could just come out and say, so do you have any burner accounts? This is exactly what it means. And Barbara, she's saying this is the toddler account, and she's not referencing the stop hitting me metaphor that I've made like a running theme throughout this. She's referencing his child's name was actually part of the handle. And I think they're going to get to that here. But he's just going on. And Ming Reach says, we're up. Is that Baby Smoke 9000? We're up. That caught me off guard, you guys. And yeah, Daisy, the lawyers might as well take the stand because they're talking more than Elon Musk. So, oh my goodness. That threw me for a loop. And we're not even at the account handle in question. So, Bankston says, okay. And then you said on a regular basis, are there any other alt accounts that you were using, so burners, that you were using to view tweets in the summer of 2023? Elon says no. And then Bankston says, okay, I was looking at the Twitter rules you had in effect in the summer of 2023, and it looked like Twitter employed people who enforced platform integrity and authenticity, including things like crisis misinformation. Is that correct? Spiro says, I'm going to object, and I'd like an explanation as to the relevance of this. So Spiro says, tell me more about, this isn't a good question to ask, but tell me what you are trying to get at here. Bankston says, because I need to know what kind of information he had access to. I need to know at that time what investigations he could have had capable, and which ones he might have ignored deliberately. Mr. Spiro, I don't see the relevance, but I'll let you ask the question. Elon says, I mean, we have a team in this regard. I don't delve into what the team does. So, siloed off, like, we have something that does that, but it's not my direct in front of me. It's not my purview. Bankston says, well, all I'm asking at this point is there are people employed at Twitter who enforce things like platform integrity and authenticity. That exists. There's, but by authenticity, that means essentially people who do impersonation, so it's stopping people from impersonating public figures. I guess that probably is the bulk use of it, right? Maybe not the only, but probably the bulk use. Because I don't know, have you guys ever, I've seen people complain that it takes kind of a while, and it's like all platforms, when someone uses someone as like a catfish account. Like, they're not using it to impersonate a big celebrity, they're just taking a random person, something more obscure, and trying to take their pictures to look like a real person so they can go and catfish someone or whatever. And those people complain, I see it a lot, that it takes forever on all platforms to kind of get that stuff taken down. So there is a use case outside of impersonating a public figure, but bulk probably, that's probably the purpose. So Bankston just says sure. Elon says there is a sort of enforcement of the law. So if somebody's posting something illegal, that needs to be taken down. That would be, if something's illegal or, in some form essentially, then that team would take it down. And then Bankston says, I noticed there was a note for crisis misinformation. I imagine if there's a huge public crisis, a storm, a bomb, and somebody's spreading information that could get people hurt, that's something that's meant by crisis misinformation. Elon says, the primary system we rely on is community notes, which we found to be far better than the so-called misinformation experts. So, okay, but as Elon Musk, are you allowed at Twitter to just grab one of these employees who's involved in platform integrity and say, hey, can you help me figure out something I saw is legit? Are you allowed to do that? Or is that misappropriating the company's property? So Elon says, that is in theory something that I could do, but I don't. I rely upon community notes for fact checking. I find it to be the best system on the internet. Now, I don't know, this just sounds like grandiose Elon Musk, like typical Elon Musk. So there's some of these things where I might be like, of course you think that. But I do think he genuinely thinks this stuff, right? So does it make this part, is there a credibility issue about this answer here? I don't really think there's a credibility issue with this answer. Because I think it's genuine, even though I'm like, all right, community notes isn't the greatest thing since sliced bread, but whatever, Elon. You know? So Bankston's just like, right. What I'm saying is, are you allowed to do that? If you were to go grab an employee at Twitter and say, hey, could you help me figure something out? Are you going to get in trouble? Is somebody going to come tell you, Elon Musk, you're not allowed to do that? So Spiro says, objection to form. Elon says, I mean, I could ask someone. Bankston says, okay. And then Elon goes on, but the nature of our enforcement is to enforce what's in accordance with the law. So Bankston says, these people who are doing their jobs, do they have access to internal Twitter tools to help them do their job? Elon says yes. So Spiro objects to form. Bankston says, the data they have access to, are you allowed to have access to it? Elon says, in theory, yes, but I've never requested access to it. So I could, but I haven't asked for it. And then Bankston says, is there anyone with the authority to say about a piece of data at Twitter to say to you, no, Mr. Musk, you can't have that, or you can't share that with anyone? Mr. Spiro, objection to forum. And again, I'm going to ask again, what is the possible relevance of this to the single tweet that we're here for on a defamation case? Can you just explain that to me? Bankston says, sure. Because when he was confronted with, again, this is kind of bizarre that I'm explaining this in front of your witness, but if he was confronted with information that made him maybe want to suggest that, hey, maybe this college student who was involved in this brawl, if he had access to people who were able to tell him or give him more data about this, and he has that authority, I need to know what Spiro says. You're saying that your point is that he had other avenues to investigate this? Bankston, that he deliberately ignored, correct. Spiro says, I think it's an objectionable question, but I'll let him answer it. Now, this is where we get into the extremely unique circumstance that we're dealing with Elon Musk, because Bankston's whole line of argument is you have access to all this stuff on Twitter you could have gone to use to investigate this one tweet, and you chose not to do it, even though you could have. And Elon's like, well, technically, I didn't ask to do that. Technically, if I went to someone, I could have had them go pull this stuff. Now, do you think, take your opinions of Elon Musk out of the picture. Do you think that that's a practical answer to expect someone, just because you have the ability to look through deep data repositories, because you work for a company, you own a company, that before you say something, you should follow that pathway every time? It's a big stretch for Bankston here. I really think it's a big stretch for Bankston here to try to make that argument. And I think Spiro realizes it, and he said, yeah, in fact, I want you to make this argument because it's going to sound stupid once you make it. It's going to sound stupid when it comes out. Because it's not possible to make that expectation. And you can't just cherry pick it to apply it to this one specific example. Because it should, in theory, apply to anyone ever. So I kind of see why Spiro let him answer this stuff, because we're in the realm of beyond normal situation here. So Bankston says, thank you. Let me repeat the question for you, just because there was a long objection, so I want to make sure you understand the question. Is there anyone with the authority to say about a piece of data at Twitter, no, Mr. Musk, you cannot see that, or you cannot share that with anyone? I mean, Elon says, I regard privacy as being very important, so I've never asked for the private information of any user. That's interesting. Maybe it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. But he's saying he's never done it. And that's a big deal, right? Because you hear all this stuff like, well, iPhone refused to grant the subpoena, or iPhone said, yeah, we'll comply with the subpoena. Now, those are always big questions in the legal space. How easily will a company turn over something in response to a warrant? Those are big questions. It's like personal information. Individual rights come into play there. Pools of consumer data could be subject to a warrant. And here, that's kind of an interesting thing to see. Is this the social media platform? Are they selling out my data? How secure is my data? Will they protect my data? And Elon, he's saying, I've never asked for the private information. Because the other attorney here is trying to get him to say, you could have gone and gotten that information, right? You could have gone and looked at it. You could have turned data in a database to something that's now information to you, for your eyes to look at, even though ordinarily it wouldn't be seen by human eyes. That's a big ask for Bankston here. And it very much goes against the philosophy of Elon Musk. So Elon's probably happy to answer this. He's like, I mean, I regard privacy as being very important, so I've never asked for private information from anyone ever. And as you saw in that post, I requested community notes to do the investigation. Community notes I find is far better than the so-called professional misinformation expert. So he was repeating that term, and that has been proven time and time again. So here he is very much promoting the community notes feature again, holding it to a very high regard. Bankston says, well, I'm confused by your answer because I still don't know if there's anyone with the authority at Twitter to tell you about a piece of data at Twitter that you cannot have access to or you cannot share. You cannot share it. Is there anybody who can do that? Or like with the Twitter files, you're pretty much allowed to do what you want. Is that referencing that Twitter files? Is that a reference to the Twitter files? When those big files, that's proper noun Twitter files, right? So this, I do really think this is outside the scope of what he should be allowed to ask here. But Elon says, I think there would be, Spiro objects, and then Elon says, it would be illegal for me to access private information of individuals. Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. Bankston says, okay, well, I'm not talking necessarily about private information about individuals, but I'm talking about anything that is used by the platform integrity team about data from the platform itself. How they analyze the public data on the platform. Are you allowed to see that? Elon, the platform integrity is simply trying to assess if something that is posted is illegal or not. And then Bankston says, Madam Court Reporter, do you have a count for me on how long we've been on the record? So they've been on the record for 47.5 minutes. And then Bankston says, okay, that's how much they're talking over each other, and I'm adding commentary. So we're going to do just a little bit, and we'll take a quick break. And then Bankston says, all right. And I'll probably, when they take that break, we'll probably split this into 2 live sessions, time it with that. Bankston says, all right, I want to talk to you about just a couple of weeks before the tweet, okay? You had given an interview on CNBC talking about your sort of state of mind and feeling about the way you tweet. Do you remember giving? Spiro says, no, I didn't hear. Mark, I didn't hear that last word. I couldn't catch it. And then Bankston says, well, let me try again because I'm not sure what my last word was. But I was describing to you how in a couple of weeks, before you made the tweets in this case, you had given an interview on CNBC where you were talking about your state of mind and your tweeting, about how you approach your tweeting with an interview with David Faber. As a favor, I always butcher everyone's names. Do you remember giving that interview? I don't remember everything about that interview, but I remember there was such an interview. Okay, Ben Brody's lawsuit has a quote from that interview, and I want to get your reaction to it to see if there is a genuine thing how you felt, right? So Mr. Faber was asking about whether you felt the need to restrain yourself tweeting. And the comment that's quoted in Ben Brody's lawsuit is, I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequences of that is losing money, so be it. Do you feel that that statement is a true assessment of your opinions in the summer of 2023? And Elon, well, what I'm saying is that sometimes I'll say things that I believe to be accurate in exercising my freedom of speech rights. And if that means we lose advertisers as a result, then so be it. So, interesting. So, this is a pretty, I think Elon's answers is relevant. I think it's probably a reality, right? I think that very well could be what he means when he says something like that. But at the same time, Ben Brody has asked for a jury trial. And pretend you're on the jury, and his team, Mark Bankston, gets up there, and you're in the jury booth, the jury box, and you hear this quote, I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequences of that is losing money, so be it. Whether this answer is a genuine answer and the context behind that quote, these types of quotes come into play during jury trials because juries react how they react to things. The jury could interpret this in a way that is not the same as this. So that's interesting. That's a pretty helpful quote, I would say, to the plaintiff. even if this answer is exactly a genuine answer. So Bankston goes on, okay, I want to ask you another statement. I want to ask you about some statements that are quoted to you or attributed to you in Walter Isaacson's books, this is that biography book, because I want to make sure that they're accurately attributed to you. And so I want to take a look at a couple things that were said in Isaacson's book. Can we bring up tab W? So Spiro says, yeah, again, I'm not going to allow this. How does this have anything to do with the state of mind on June 27th, 2023? I'm not going to allow this. Bankston, Mr. Spiro, Mr. Walters, move on to another subject. Who's Mr. Walters? Did I miss that? Hold on, we're on page 50. If someone appearances. Mr. Walters. Mr. Walters. Who does he belong to? So maybe this is a typo. So maybe this is Spiro, and they just typed Mr. Walters. Or there's another person there that's not listed in the appearances, or maybe this is the videographer say. Why would the videographer cut it? Anyway, I'm gonna assume it's a typo, and this is Spiro saying, move on to another subject, because we've heard Spiro say that before. And Bankston says, it's literally him describing his state of mind for how he approaches these tweets. I don't understand why this quote that we have here in front of us. Spiro says, okay, you want to ask him if he said this? Bankston, yes, that's all I'm asking. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's about his state of mind in tweeting. Mr. Spiro, well, I'm not so sure. The state of mind cases, I don't know in every court in Texas, but typically do not allow things that happen non-temporarily. Bankston says, I mean, I just quoted you the law that says that's not true, and you can absolutely. Spiro says, okay, ask him the question. Mr. Bankston says, yeah, let's go. And then the videographer cuts in, excuse me, Mr. Musk just logged off or got kicked off or something. He's no longer on the Zoom. Bankston, do you want to take a break real quick and see if we can get him back on? Yeah, Mark, that's fine. I was going to take a break in an hour, but I figured we can just take a break right now if you want to do that. Do you want to take 20 minutes? No, I mean, I don't think we need 20 minutes, Mark. I mean, we're almost done. So Spiro's like, no, we're not going to go on a break and come back for a long, extended. And I think Spiro's going to lose this because we have another 50 pages. But yeah. So Mr. Bankston says, the problem is, I'm not trying to be difficult here. I'm really not. The water main broke at our building today, so to go use the restroom, I have to walk down the street. Mr. Spiro, well, okay, that's a real thing. We'll be back in 10. Hopefully you're back in 10. If you're back in 13, no one's going to be alarmed. But I'm going to try to make it a 10-minute break. So Bankston says, I understand. You don't need to keep communicating your feelings on the ridiculousness of the endeavor I'm currently engaged in. So Mr. Spiro, well, it's also a short deposition. So he's reminding him we're not going to stay much longer once we get back. So whether even needing a break is, I don't know, it's necessary, but okay, let's do it. 10 minutes. Okay, thanks. So the videographer goes off the record and they take an 18-minute break and they come back on the record 18 minutes later. So they're going to move into another exhibit here. They're going to talk about the biography by Walter. Oh, wait. That's why he wrote Walters, because he was thinking of Walter Isaacson. The court reporter must have just, instead of typing Mr. Spiro, wrote Walters. That's funny. But we'll stop that there. I'll make myself half screen because we've got another 50 pages. We can do that in a separate stream. We had a lot of back and forth, but then we had some moments that it was really just, it was question and answer with the witness. It wasn't really interruptions. It wasn't as bad as I thought. And then to close it out, let's see. You guys are saying it would be very extreme that Elon Musk would ever pull someone aside for data on a random tweet. Yeah, it just seems like a big ask. It just seems unusual. And it's something that's only even at play as a possibility here because it's Elon Musk. But to expect someone, everything you ever say or do, you run and pull a data integrity check on it. Like, that'd be cool maybe, but why? And then unless authorities ask. So, but if he was just being a diabolical person, he could if he wanted. Couldn't it be checked if the data was accessed by Elon Musk? I mean, possibly a lot of stuff does have like activity triggers like that, but if he was asking someone else to do it, then you'd have to find out like, was it Elon Musk that asked you to do this? And yeah, the Twitter files, that was that proper noun, right? The Matt Taibbi used to be a respected journalist. Yeah, that was that big. I think it's interesting Bankston brought that up. And I do kind of think it's a little bit irrelevant because some of that Twitter file stuff wasn't all when Elon Musk was like, he didn't develop the platform and the stuff that was going on there. Twitter files became a big news story when Elon Musk was buying Twitter. But the files themselves, a lot of that was, it wouldn't have been something that was relevant to Elon Musk being able to walk in a room and asking some Twitter employee to pull data for him. So it was just a weird thing for, I think it was a weird thing for Bankston to try to get something out of. And then Elon Musk to advertisers, go fuck yourself, waits for applause, looks around and repeats himself, hoping for a better. Yeah, I really do think that genuinely he said that for advertisers as some OL to advertisers, not something about an individual person. Because I think the most important thing on Elon Musk's side here that we got out is he's saying, and there hasn't been a adequate challenge in this deposition. It's not like Bankston pulled out receipts and said, well, look at this exhibit here. There could be some proof that we'll get. But he was like, oh, you don't recall ever being told that Ben Brody wanted you to issue a retraction? You don't recall that? I think if there's nothing that comes forward where, hey, we actually submitted this to you and you responded yourself, Elon, that's actually a pretty big thing to come out of this. And I couldn't tell if Bankston's, oh, you don't recall? I don't know if that was facetious or if it was a, wait a minute. Oh boy, I see we just stepped into hot water here. I don't really know which way it could go reading the transcript. I think that was like the biggest thing we got out of here on Elon's side. And yeah, thanks. Yeah, we gotta break it up sometimes. We can't always do 3-hour streams. And then Elon Musk created by Tesla. Do you mean Elon Musk himself was created by Tesla? And then Daisy says, just posting this again in case you missed it. I went to watch your live stream for JM sentencing on Monday to re-listen. Oh, did I play something? You know what? I wonder if it was some music or something, or maybe from playing, did I play part of Chill's video on that? That could be why. I'll go look. I'll check into that. If nothing else, maybe I'll download it, clip it, re-upload it. But that's a good time for me to get up off here. I'll go check into that. Thanks for pointing that out. For you guys that have all shared thoughts on part 1 of this deposition so far. I mean, I thought it was really entertaining. I always like to see attorneys spar, and we got that. Part 2, we'll see where it goes. I don't know if I'll be able to do it tomorrow, but maybe Friday. But you'll know, I'll post it a few hours before I go live. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to go check on this other video, and I'll catch you guys